So, say for instance that I become a bully as a teenager, and I still have bullying tendencies of behavior through my adult life, in my relationships, and so on. But I don't address that issue because I see myself as being a limitless being beyond all of that. So would I not benefit from having some sense of responsibility to try and change that behavior, or change the mental patterns that create that behavior?
Behavior, or what are you speaking about? How you internally experience it, or your behavior? Because I want to understand what you mean by behavior. Maybe
ways of being in the world that are destructive, either for myself or for other people. Actions that come from an inner distortion of character, or an inner distortion of unconscious pain, I don't know, could be many things.
Yes, so what? In the fullness of life, there's everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. It's terrifying if only one have the courage to contemplate on really what this fullness contains. You're asking me, do I need to change my behavior if I have this and that? And well, if that's what you wish, if that's your goal, if this is what you want, then why not? Yes. But how important this is in the context, to me this is only so what?
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm seeing it as a necessary aspect to address in myself, because particularly as a result of listening to you talking about dissolving the sense of ego, or however you describe that, as being so crucial. And I was making that connection, and have for a long time made the connection between any chance of being open to the grace of self-realization is undermined by the aspects of character in me which create protection, which create structure and barriers, and they prevent that dissolving. I suspect they'd prevent that process of dissolving and make it maybe fruitless for me to be here, I don't know. And yet I have a deep, deep longing to step outside all of that and live my life from a self-realized place for the benefit, not just for me, but for everyone, for everything.
Fair enough. I hear you. But I want to give you an example now. It will be drastic of an example, right? And anyway, you got used to it, so yeah. It's not your first time. Imagine all of us sitting here, right? All of us, however few of us here. After we sat here and maybe had a meal, we're all gonna saddle horses and we're gonna face a battle, because the village with our kids just across this, mothers, grandmothers, like basically threatened. And we are the only folks who can really face this imminent assault. So it's up to us to, protect our protect our neighborhood, right? Protect our villages. And we know we're all gonna die because the force out there, we're greatly outnumbered. So there's no question, the only question is, how can we make that the most valuable? How can we make that so that it's not just like a, act of courage, but it did not bring anything. So it's given. We'll have a meal and we meet the bandits on the fields over there, and all of us will perish. We're not going to see the next morning, okay? What would matter in this moment the most? What would matter the most in this moment?
The temperature of the water for the tea.
That's a good point. I like the temperature of the water somehow more, although... What would the most matter? We all gonna die. And not in a kind of a cowardly way. We want to make sure that our deaths will take, lives of few others who threaten our village, because our kids are running there, barely walking grandmothers. Our wives are there. We're not going to allow our folk to be humiliated, raped, taken into slavery. We're going to give our life. This dramatic situation is what will matter today, this last few hours. What is the most important? This, what settles affairs very quickly, you see? This is what I'm talking about. This is the only important thing, because we're all gonna fucking die here, all of us. Not tonight on the battlefield here, but that example somehow makes and puts things into perspective. That's why we watch these movies and read these epics and read these poems, because this chivalry, honor, is greater than life here. And if we can give this life for the purpose, right? Simple, noble, but simple. It's not even like we're not even saving some great country. We're not even fighting under flag. No medals will be distributed. Nothing. We're simply saving the life of our villages. What is the most important moment on this day in the few final hours? Would that matter how crooked I am, if my leg is shorter than the other, how abused I was, my father was alcoholic, my mother was prostitute? All that does not matter at all. What matters is how am I squaring this affair with the spirit. That's all there is. Do I have the spirit to face the bastards? Do I have the spirit? Or am I going to die as a coward being afraid to die? That's all that matters. You see, that's what I said. The example will be dramatic. So through the dramatic example, you know that in the last and the final hour, what do you carry in yourself? Historically, it is very well known. There were cultures where warriors were brought up, honed, cultured, knowing very well that most of them will die, because these were the times historically where that what would require out of a boy or a girl born into the warrior family. Their job will be to protect other citizens, less capable, untrained. How can you bring out that person if they cling to life? What a warrior on a battlefield if he clings to life? He will not be able to go and face that. And yet the warrior who is free, he is like a power on the battlefield, a force. He in fact is invincible at some point because he's invincible already in his essence. Bullets fly through him and he still carries his sword and does the job until the last fraction of air, of life force is out. This is what I'm speaking to you, to your divine masculine. I'm speaking to you born as a human being, as a man, okay? All this is a petty ideas that somehow keeps that character with all these like sticks that try to protect it. Throw them out, away from yourself, and stand there as you are, as I see you right now, and see what happens. Truly see what happens. Yes, we live in this time. We live in fucked up time, I'm sorry. Yes, this time you need to really look carefully and examine. This is why we watch these films. That's why we really, because these aspects are within us, you see? Only maybe 2 generations down the line, your ancestors were riding the horses, enduring hardship, walking a sliver of life and death situations, maybe not on a daily basis, but certainly in many occasions throughout their lives. And suddenly, we're in a very different setting. And suddenly what takes precedence is a lot of this, So this is what spiritual warrior is about. That's why it's a spiritual warrior. That's why it's spiritual and warrior. You see? It's not a spiritual pussy. It's a warrior. And it requires that attitude. It's asked of you. Yes, you can be peaceful by nature. This is what's so beautiful about this also. This, that not only kshatriyas or samurais, but sometimes the real villages are, asked to rise and to protect. So, translate this. If this is the final hour of your life, what would matter the most? Would behavior matter at all? What would matter only is what is it like to face it in the final hour? What are you leaning on? You see? That's where the affair is squarely settled. So that you meet your final hour in glory, in beauty, because the essence of who you are cannot be slayed, cannot drown, cannot burn, cannot die. This is the realization. This is the loftiest realization that there is. Everything else is trivial. Everything else is trivial. It completely makes us prisoners, slaves of this existence. When we realize that, we walk through life with dignity. Even if for the very first time, we walk through life with full dignity of who we are, because our status is regained. Otherwise, we'll always lean on somehow there is this in the past, that in the past. No. Women are cooking last meal now, we're saddling the horses, and we're going to fucking die on that battlefield this afternoon. When the sun will set, it will all be red. This, sometimes worthy of a reminder. You see? Sometimes people perplex. You are a spiritual teacher, you blah blah blah, you this and that. How can you really like these violent stories and you watch these films? How can you, like what a contradiction. There's something must be wrong with you. Have you been played with, abused maybe? No, I had a relatively quiet upbringing, But something that is there cannot be extinguished because situations in life, or the way we are born and the way we are being brought up and the way our life is, makes no room for chivalry. Then find that place. Find that chivalry. At some point, as a painter, you know what? I didn't even want to use brushes. I only wanted to use palette knives. Because it kind of like pissed me off to have brush. I put all the brushes away. I only had this knives, and more knives. And the great art critic in Great Britain here, the notorious Brown Seal, when he saw my painting, he said, your painting look as if you battle with it. It literally look as if there is an act of like literally this element of fencing. We can always find area for self-expression here. And believe me, there is something about it. Walking this life, through this day, as if this is the last one. As if it's one and the only last one. Nothing is taken for granted then. Or if we spread it kind of too cozily and constantly, then all that becomes real. All that stuff that happened to us has suddenly become real. It weighs us down. It makes us, and this and that. And we're weighing around it, and this fictitious character usurping that what is completely, always free, luminous, shines forth. There's nothing, absolutely nothing in you that is real right now as you sit here at this very moment that is less and in the iota. Tap to that, feel it in your bone marrow, at the base of your spine, at your heart, in your gut. Feel it. It's there at all times. That power within, the true sense of your character, of who you are, the essence of your being.
The power of the energy I'm receiving from you makes me want to sit in absolute stillness, and yet at the same time to roar, absolutely roar, vocally roar, make a sound.
So why are you holding back?
So why am I holding back?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we gather like this here. So we can get through all this. That's why I never said anyone, this is why these workshops, this is why we do these retreats, so that we can also roar. Just as one roars, when one enters on a battlefield, right? One can let that air vibrate with the force of one's lungs. And everyone knows the line is there, the line of the heart. You need to culture the power. You know, at some point, licking the old wounds is not going to do. They already healed. Scars grew over. Don't waste your time licking them.